Hello and welcome to the beginning of 2022. We have quite a bit to look forward to coming this year, and I'm here to help you plan accordingly. Hopefully there are a few surprises in the video. It's a long one, so buckle up. If you're at all an impatient person, I've created timestamps for all the games on this list. This type of video takes quite a while for me to put together, so if you do end up enjoying the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The other writers at SwitchRPG have also put lists together of their most anticipated Switch RPGs coming, so don't forget to visit SwitchRPG.com. My name is Gio, and these are my most anticipated Switch RPGs coming in 2022. If your RPG-trained eyes spotted a resemblance to the games of the past, you may be correct. With an obvious influence from Chrono Trigger, Sea of Stars is not just a magnificent pixel art or stunning dynamic lighting feast for your eyes. Legendary composer Yasunori Mitsuda of Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has joined the team to round out this beautiful looking RPG. While Sea of Stars is a prequel to The Messenger, it is not at all required to have been played. Sea of Stars tells the story of two children of the solstice who will combine powers of the sun and moon to perform eclipse magic, the only force capable of fending off the monstrous creations of the evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer. Chained Echoes is a successfully crowdfunded project that I personally pledged to without hesitation. If you're a fan of the Xenogears and Chrono Trigger franchises, Chained Echoes may be a game you'll want to keep a close eye on. Matthias Linda has been working on Chained Echoes since 2016, and it still always surprises me how much a single person can do in regards to game development. However, it is difficult for one person to do it all. So Eddie Marianucro was brought in to help orchestrate the music, and he seems to nail down the tone for the environments created. Chained Echoes is a turn-based RPG with pixel art design, and it's paired seamlessly with a fantastic soundtrack. Square Enix is taking advantage of their HD 2D game design with Triangle Strategy. Still not a fan of that title. Your decisions mean quite a bit where they can sculpt your path in the world. The demo provided a few battles and was extremely entertaining. One thing I really liked about the combat was the ability to stack different elements on top of each other for different effects. If you're a fan of strategy RPG, this is definitely one you're going to be buying. I was a really big fan of Mario plus Rabbids. You can often find it for less than $15 on the eShop, and it's well worth it. It was very simplistic in its design and fantastic for newcomers in the genre. The sequel, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, looks like it's adding new mechanics to the combat, but I'm not really sure how it's being implemented. In the trailer, you can see that there's free roam within a combat circle, which is definitely a newly added feature. Speaking of newly added features, you'll be collecting sparks, which have different abilities to turn the tide in battle. The trailer also shows more of an open world than its predecessor and potentially new characters to party up with. One thing is certain, Pokemon Legends Arceus will be a divisive game. There will be some purists who will be resistant to the change in gameplay, and then there are folks like me who have been asking for a change in the Pokemon formula for quite a while, and here we are, the change is finally here. Can this go horribly wrong? Yes it can. But sometimes change hurts, and growing pains are necessary for improvement. After watching some trailers, I'm quite excited to see these new changes. An open world action RPG in a new Japanese-inspired region of Hisui. Did you hear what I just said? An action RPG. This is the first in the series to be designated as such, and that prospect alone, I am excited. I'm gonna be honest here, these types of RPGs aren't usually my thing. I find them to be quite tedious, and there's actually more work than playing games. I will say that Rune Factory 5 appeals to me a little bit more because of its emphasis on combat and exploration. So in saying that, there is just so much to do in Rune Factory 5. You have the social aspect in which you can build so many relationships. You can also tame monsters in Rune Factory 5 and have them fight alongside you. And you can farm. Yeah, and you can farm. That's where the tedious work comes in, I feel anyway. I personally haven't kept up with the game as it's already been released in Japan, but if it's more combat and narrative oriented, I'm all for it. This Shadowrun series holds a special place in my heart, playing one of the early titles on the Super Nintendo to playing Shadowrun Dragonfall on the PC. I really love what the Shadowrun universe does. They combine the cyberpunk look and the elements of high fantasy like magic and orcs and elves and so much more. The trilogy was announced on the Nintendo Direct and is set to include 3 Dragonrun titles: Shadowrun Returns, Shadowrun Dragonfall, and Shadowrun Hong Kong, all of which are tactical RPGs and have an excellent narrative and memorable visuals. Kingdom Come Deliverance is a massive title. It's not only graphically intensive, but it's literally a massive open world RPG. Think Skyrim, but without magic. I know it's more than that, but I'm keeping it simple. The obvious concern I have with this title is how will it run on the Switch? Well, when I found out Saber Interactive was helping bring it on over, my worries were squashed. Saber helped with the Witcher 3 port, and that runs with little to no issues. Only problem with the Witcher 3 is its resolution, but you know, this isn't really about the Witcher 3. Back to Kingdom Come. We finally get an open world RPG on the Switch. It's a port, but you know, it still counts. Immersing yourself in this beautifully created land with no magic abilities is somewhat a breath of fresh air in this medieval setting. With so much to explore, I will no doubt be spending many hours hacking and slashing my way to avenge my parents' death in Kingdom Come Deliverance sometime in 2022. Pillars of Eternity 2 makes all the necessary changes that made me not want to play Pillars of Eternity 1. Voice acting, turn-based mode, and multi-classing at character creation are some of the more important features added. This CRPG has a beautifully designed world to explore on the ground as well on the sea. While ship battles are mostly text-based to start, it leaves a little bit more to be desired. Boots on the ground combat can be done with either real-time with pause or turn-based combat, which is my personal preference. Pillars of Eternity 2 has seen some delays to make its way onto the Switch, but my hope is that it arrives this year. At the point of making this video, there have only been character reveal trailers, and although I wish there was more gameplay shown off, I am still excited to see another Vampire the Masquerade game, especially one on the Switch. Being that there are only a handful of Vampire games in the Switch's library, I am glad that we're getting this one, especially because it has its roots in the tabletop community. People that enjoy narrative-driven RPGs definitely want to keep an eye on this one. After seeing the Dysmantle trailer, I immediately had thoughts of what Fallout 76 could have been. Sorry, that's a low blow, but seriously, I'm really excited for this release. In this open world survival RPG, you have the ability to literally dismantle everything to create items and upgrades. You'll also take on hordes of monsters and even use their parts to make equipment. As I mentioned, this is a survival RPG. You'll be hunting, fishing, and farming, but don't worry about your thirst or hunger. You won't need to manage those things. So get ready to explore the world and find a way to get off the island. Way back in November 2020, Endless Fluff posted on their site that the porting of the Nintendo Switch version was halted. The porting was handled by a separate developer and was having compatibility issues with the game's engine. A lot of time has passed and hopefully those issues have been worked through. The delay aside, let's discuss Fae Tactics. Fae Tactics is a beautifully crafted pixel art tactics RPG akin to Final Fantasy Tactics. Environments are well thought out and designed. There are many routes and levels, just like any good tactics game, making combat interesting. And while there's been zero confirmation that Fae Tactics is being released on the Switch, the recent release on Xbox Game Pass gives me hope that we're closer than developers leading us to believe. Please tell me you've heard of Golf Story, and if you have heard of it, please tell me you've played it. Not only could it be a hidden gem, it could even land on many top 10 Switch RPGs to date. With all that being said, Sports Story has already seen one delay in August 2020, and I think it's unlikely we see another one. Fingers crossed, obviously. Sports Story looks to combine dungeons, fishing, puzzles, and of course, sports. By the looks of the trailer, it seems to be blending sports like volleyball and tennis, and soccer and basketball. Interesting ideas like these are what made Golf Story so memorable. Not only was Golf Story such a good time, the team at Sidebar Games was creative with the gameplay and narrative. They were able to tell a good story and not take themselves so seriously. So I am excited to play Sports Story and see what it has to offer, hopefully this year. SacriFire is taking advantage of the unique art style we're seeing a lot of in pixel art games. HD, 2D. Wouldn't want the Square Enix ninjas after me. As a personal Kickstarter backer, I was immediately drawn into the way combat is being handled. It gives me the Star Ocean and Tales of vibes. The developer is calling it a blend of real-time and turn-based combat, which sort of sounds like active time battle, but we'll have to wait and see until we get a little bit more from the devs. The soundtrack is also getting quite a bump from Motoi Sakuraba, the legendary composer of some Star Ocean and Tales of titles. What a match made in heaven. We will actually have to wait a little bit longer for Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, and maybe by the time it's released there will be a new Nintendo Switch console. 2023 is the expected release window, and I am already in full-on frenzy mode for its release. Eiyuden Chronicle started as a Kickstarter project and it obliterated its funding goal. And if I could take a quick moment to brag a little bit, I was the first backer. They ought to give me some sort of trophy or something. Anyway, Eiyuden Chronicle is staffed with an elite development team with members of the Suikoden 1, 2, and 4 teams. As the recent trend goes with the HD 2D graphic style, I hope Eiyuden Chronicle expands on that formula, and it appears to be doing just that. There's a variety of different camera angles, especially during combat, and cartoonesque animations for character movements during cutscenes. It would also be wrong of me not to mention the prequel Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, a side-scrolling RPG. Rising doesn't have the same appeal to me, but it's releasing in 2022. This could be the game that fans of the XCOM series have been waiting for. If it isn't, this is the closest you'll get to a new title by the studio that brought you the XCOM series. One major spin to this experience is that it is a turn-based card battle system, so we'll be given a random set of cards for each character. Midnight Suns promises a deep role-playing experience and is one of the first customizable Marvel playable characters. Developing relationships with so many Marvel characters gives me the Fire Emblem vibes in the way it's being done. And I get those XCOM vibes because of the central hub called the Abbey, where we gain new abilities and upgrade existing ones. Being able to play as some of my favorite Marvel characters with this type of combat has me truly excited, and I cannot wait for March 2022, which is the expected release window. There have been rumors swirling about that Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake would be coming out in 2022, but there have also been some folks on the Twitter sphere denying it altogether. Either way, the HD 2D makes its way onto another RPG. Here's to hoping it doesn't get too excessive. Perhaps this is what I hoped Octopath Traveler would be. In fact, I know it will be. One thing we know for sure that will carry over, that there's a cohesive story in Dragon Quest III, as opposed to Octopath Traveler. But there's still a lot we don't know, particularly if there are any quality of life modifications. But after watching the trailer, I really enjoyed seeing the new combat screen and seeing the return of the night-day cycle. Here's to hoping we see this in 2022, and hopefully those Twitter peoples were wrong. Broken Roads is a narrative-driven tactical RPG set in the wilderness of Australia, but be careful with how you interact with people because your dialogue choices will matter. The morality system is pretty involved and makes you think twice before stabbing someone in the back. The environment in this post-apocalyptic Australia has a beautifully hand-painted look, and in my honest opinion, it looks to be a blend of Wasteland and the Telltale series. So get ready for the isometric CRPG coming to the Nintendo Switch sometime in 2022. Alaloth Champions of the Four Kingdoms is an isometric stamina-based action RPG with deep lore. You won't be able to hack and slash your way through the many dungeons. As with most stamina-based RPGs, you'll have to learn your enemy movements and decide when to attack and when the time is right. You can expect engaging combat and magical powers with every enemy encounter. What I really like about Alaloth is that it reminds me of the older CRPGs but puts a new spin on the combat, making it an action RPG. Genshin Impact. Maybe, eventually. Monarch. Looks alright. The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. This timeline is very daunting. I don't have the time to play all the Legend of games. I really don't. Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. Is this a mobile game? Metal Slug Tactics. Looks cool. Digimon Survive. Delayed Again Edition. Game Deck. Cyberpunk without combat. The Cruel King and the Great Hero. Write a book with me. Atelier Sophie 2. Thick. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, or whatever Monolith Soft is working on.